Okay, good morning, Warriors. Good to see you all again. If you are on today, I'd appreciate it if you go ahead and unmute your video, but for now, mute your audio because I like to see you all. It's good to see you, and I hope you are doing well. So again, please unmute your video so we can see you, and at the same time, mute your audio so that we don't have I think someone's got their audio unmuted and they don't realize it because they're moving around, and I can kind of hear that. Okay. Let me just get one more thing going here and then we'll get started. Okay, here's what we're going to do today. Up on the screen, we've got MRP Part 2. That's where we are today. Reminder, tonight, we've got the Way of the Warrior project due at 7 p.m. That's on Canvas. Couple things on Pearson and homework, none of which are due until not this Sunday, but next Sunday. First things first, yesterday on Pearson, I went ahead and opened the problem set homework that's on 6-pack. That's probabilistic demand and lead time, determining inventory when we have one or both of those conditions. So that homework will be due on Pearson, not this coming Sunday, but the week from. So that's the 26th. All right, but I wanted to open it now in case you wanted to work on it now. You've got essentially a little bit over a week to work on that. While I'm at it, and what's not up on the screen with Pearson, I also opened homework that's going to be due a little while from now. So it'd be a week from this right here, whatever that weekend is in May. And that's going to be on statistical process control. But I went ahead and opened it anyway. If you want to begin working on it, you certainly don't need to. We're not going to cover that material until next week at the earliest. So, but it's out there if you want to take a look at it. One last thing on homework, what I am going to put out tonight or tomorrow is an MRP problem set based on what we did Tuesday and what we're doing today. Excuse me. And you'll have the rest this weekend and next week to chip away on that. And that'll be due 1 minute before midnight on Canvas, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So just to recap on the homework, nothing is due this Sunday. The Way the Warrior project is due tonight. In terms of a week from Sunday, you're going to have a couple things to do. Pearson problem set with the 6-pack. I think that's about 5 problems in there. And then the MRP stuff that we've done this week. Again, if you haven't watched the 6-pack video that I put out before we went on spring break, you're going to need to watch that in order to understand how to do the 6-pack type of problems. And then next week, we'll get into statistical process control. That's what SPC stands for. And then we'll do something with that, probably a we drive working kind of thing this time next week. Any questions on this? Okay, let me go ahead and snag something here. Okay, super. Here's what we're going to do today. I am recording right now. I've already got that going on. We're going to go over material requirements planning. Not necessarily again, but take it a step further. Tuesday, we did gross requirements planning. And today we're going to start getting into what's the difference between that and MRP. And the primary difference is this thing called net requirements. That is going to set the conditions for us to get after the $1 million question, which is why we went after this in the first place, which is how much inventory of components do we need under MRP? And so we're going to go into two techniques. One is a lot for lot, which means we order what we need. And another is kind of our old friend EOQ with a twist, meaning every time we order a set amount. And of course, with both of those techniques, there's trade-offs in terms of holding costs and ordering costs. And so that's what we're going to get into today. So with that, first thing we're going to do is go to really, it's snowing outside. You got to be kidding me. Unreal. Only in Pennsylvania. All right. Sorry. A little bit of distraction there. Right before the call, my internet went out, so I have all sorts of excuses that I'm not going to waste your time with. So here we go. Okay. So this spreadsheet is on today's canvas. Um, one thing I thought about this morning that I hadn't really thought about lately is kind of your point of view on things. And just as a side note, your ability to do Excel work while participating in this class. And I started to wonder about what your ability is to do that. If you had two computers or you had an iPad and so I just started going, man, I got to do more thinking on that, on how to make this course more effective if we're going to do Excel work this way, which we need to. But anyway, that's a side note. If you have thoughts on that and want to talk about that later, I'd certainly look forward to that conversation. Hopefully you had a chance to print this thing out by hand. If not, you can follow along. Either way, I will upload what we're going to do when we're done. So once we're done with this, what it looks like, I'll upload that to Canvas so that you've got it and you can cross-check your notes and things. So we're going to mess with this dude today. This is our bill of materials. I wonder if I can make him a little bigger. All right. So at the top, we've got alpha. That's our end item. We have our components on down. So we have Bravo as a component, Delta Charlie. Charlie shows up a couple times. And then we have Echo and Fox, and Echo and Fox show up a couple times. And again, as a quick review, we have levels, meaning A is a parent to B, and B is down here on level 1. B is a parent to D and C. And A is also parent to C down here on its own side. And we have level 2, and then we have level 3 with the rest of the gang. The subscript in terms of B1, D2, Charlie 2, etc., is the amount that is required for the parent. So Charlie 2 has to provide 2 for each one of Bravo. And Bravo has to provide 1 for each one of Alpha. Now, this kind of thing right here in the real world is probably configured as a parts kit. So we could kind of make things a little bit simpler. You'll probably see that out in industry. I have before. Sometimes you don't need the whole parts kit, and that's kind of wasteful, but that's another story. So what we're going to do today is we're going to roll with putting 100 as our gross requirement here. First, let me back up one step. I'm sorry. Let's get oriented to this spreadsheet. So what's different than what we have the other day? Well, a couple things. One is we have this scheduled receipts row, which we're actually not going to do anything with right now. Once we get down in the component items, we have this row that's called a net requirement. And essentially that means how many can we produce without having to tap into inventory, or how much do we need to produce without putting in an order. And you'll see more how this works. Um, and we have some familiar terms. We have planned order release. Um, Projected available balance is essentially how much we have on hand, either in inventory or through production. And for the majority of this spreadsheet, we're just going to talk about what's been generated through production. And then we're going to work the inventory on, on some separate sheets. What's this over here? Well, we have the item itself. We have the level code, which is just corresponding to this chart here. Okay, so A, for example, is at level 0 because that's the item itself. B is level 1 because that's the next level down, and so on and so forth. And then we have lead time. Okay, and remember these numbers like lead time for alpha, 2 for Bravo, have nothing to do with the numbers that are up here. Okay, and I got, I'm sorry, I got a question up on chat, which was, are we supposed to have this file? You're not necessarily supposed to. It is on today's Canvas. If you want to use that and follow along and input in there, you don't have to. You can do it some other way and take notes of what's going on. And I will record this video as well. So you have multiple ways, but you don't have to necessarily have this file. But it is on today's Canvas. Okay. Well, since we're talking about that, let me make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. The chat's coming up and saying it's not one of the options. So let me just pause and see if maybe I'm saying something that is not true or that I believe is true and it isn't. Give me 1 second. Okay, this is today. Big cookies. So it'd be this file right here that you want to, I don't know why that's doing that. It says it's one thing, but then it's coming up as another. Okay, well, I can fix that if you just bear with me. I don't know why it says it's there, but I'll take it off. It's some kind of ghost in the machine. Okay. Does it work now? Can you access it now? Let's see if we can. Okay, I can on mine, so you should be able to on yours. I apologize for that. I don't know why it's saying one thing and showing another. So I'm gonna drive on and assume that you can access it now. Okay, super, awesome. Sorry about for that. That's Murphy's law. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna work with this 100 first and walk this 100 all the way through. I don't know why it's not working there. Okay. So if we have a requirement of 100 in week 13 for alpha, that means that we need a release. Oh, my computer is just being that way. All right, there we go. So we're going to start right there. And if we have a gross requirement there, that means we need to have a 100 here. And for this 100, I'm just going to track it all the way through in yellow. So the first things first, and when I work, I'm going to refer to my diagram here, and I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to go within the level left to right. Okay. So first thing with that movement pattern, I'm going to go to Bravo right here and put that requirement. And because I have a subscript of 1, my requirement of Bravo is for 1. And same movement pattern. I'm just going to go down. Now, this time I'm going to pause at net requirement. So if I had an on-hand balance here, let's say I had already components available for Bravo and I didn't need to make any, then that's what I would take those into account. So let's say I had 50 here, then my net requirement would be 50, but I don't have any right now. So I'm just going to put 100. And before I go on, that's, I think the main thing is that with MRP, it's important to remember that the P in MRP is plan. So um, you might be thinking too, man, surely there's some software that can do this. And yes, there is. But like many other things, it's good to know the foundation of what the software does. And so that's why we do these simple models by hand. Okay. But the other thing is it's a plan. It's not a requisitioning. It doesn't actually requisition the items. This doesn't. I'm sure there are softwares that do that. All right, so back on track, we're just going to go down, and when we hit the bottom, we look at that lead time for Bravo, which is 2. So we're going to go back 1, 2, and put that 100 there. Okay, then working left to right, there's nothing else in level 1 that we need to do. So we're just going to go down and start with left again, and that'll put us at D. So we're going to jump down here to D and synchronize with that B right there. Now for D, we need 2 for each one of B. So that'll put us down here in week 10 with 200. And same thing, we're just going to follow all the way down. Our net requirement is going to be 200 because we don't have any available. And then we look at the lead time for D, which is 1. So we're going to jump over here. Okay. Moving left to right, we'll go back up here to C, and we'll start here. We have a subscript of 2, so that'll put a 200 here. Walk our way down. Again, nothing on hand. And so we'll hit the bottom, and then we have a lead time of 3 for C. So 1, 2, 3. And you may be thinking, well, why don't you have any inventory in here? Well, a couple reasons. One is because I kind of wanted to ease us into this, kind of like baking a cake, build a foundational layer, then build upon that. Not that I'm really a cake kind of person, but anyway, the other thing is that you could always do it this way and then put the inventory in and adjust things. So there's multiple ways of doing this. All right, so we ended with that first C, and now we're going to move over to the right to this other C. Now, here's where things are going to start to get a little bit interesting. So to synchronize this C, we have to go back to the original A, and that would be this A right up there. And so we're going to start here. And for this C, we only need 1 for each one of A. So that'll put 100 here. I'm still going to put it in yellow because it's still for this end requirement up here. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to carry it down. I'm going to put 100 here. And again, with C, I have a lead time of 3. So 1, 2, 3. And I think as you're doing this, against once we get in the end, when you look at something like this, you want to, I think the simple way to look at it is, do I have a start and a finish? So I have a start and I have a finish for the 100. I have a start and I have a finish for the 200. So that all matches up. So I'm done with level 2. Now I'm going to go down to level 3, start back over here on the left and go down to E. And the good thing is that I don't need my whole spreadsheet, which is why I copied this again. So this diagram is just that diagram. And because C is synchronizing, or E is synchronizing with C, I don't need to think about A right now. I can focus on C. So I want to synchronize with this C right there because that's this C in the diagram. So I'm going to start right there. And because this C is 100 and E, I need 1 for every C. This would be 100 as well. So I'm going to go down. And my lead time for E is 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to do Fox. So I'm still synchronizing with this C here. I'm going to go down to Fox here. 1 Fox for every Charlie. So that makes 100. 100. And then for Fox, I have a lead time of 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then I have a second pass on E and F for this other C. So I first need to, excuse me, make sure that I'm in the right column. So that would be this C. Actually, I think I made a mistake. Let's see here. Let me just double check my work.
Doesn't it say that the lead time's only 1 for the bottom 2?
Can you say that again?
I said, doesn't it say that the lead time is only 1 for the bottom 2 for E and F?
Yeah.
You made it for 3.
All right. Good catch. So I'm going to just back up a little bit. So I'm done with D. I've
Wouldn't
got
you
C and
start wouldn't you start from the 200 because C is 2, not
yep,
the 100 from C?
I would. You're right. That's what and I made those mistakes on purpose. I'm just kidding. No, but sincerely, you guys are all correct, and that's what I'm going back to do. So I'm going back to this C. Actually, I'm starting with level 3. All right, so I'm done with level 2. I'm starting again with level 3. Um, I'm trying to. I think it was Myra or Ellie who just said, "Hey, you should be synchronizing off of C2, which is that 200 here." Right? So to synchronize off of that, I need to be out here. So I'm going to start back over right now here with that echo. And that'll be, it's one for every Charlie. So that'll be here. And I think it was Cody that said these are really 1 week lead time. So that would put us there for that echo there on the bottom level. And if I go back here for F, I would start in the same spot. This would be 200. This would be 200. And this would be right there. All right. Interesting, same pattern with those two. Then we still have these two to do on level 3. And those are the ones that I mistakenly did before. So for this Charlie is that Charlie right there. And I want to go down here to do that one. And that is right there. And I'll have the same pattern here. Actually, I could just copy these. Boom. All right. You guys check me out. Am I good in the hood? We good in the hood? Okay. Well, so what? Well, what if we have another requirement right here for 50? Well, in terms of process, nothing changes. We just need to know what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and start this out. Same process. We're going to go top, bottom, left to right. So that 50 would go here. That would go right there. So Jasmine, where's that 50 going to go over here?
It would go in like spot 8, I think, because the lead time is 2.
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, super. All right, so that takes care of B. And then I'm going to jump down here to D. D is going to synchronize with B. So I'm going to jump down here. And let's see, I need 2 for every 1. So this will be 100. And Hannah, where do I go now? from where I am right now? Where do I go? If you're talking, you're on mute. All right, Chris, where do I go from here? Where I am right now? Where do I put that D?
I'm actually not sure because I'm trying to follow along on my Excel spreadsheet, but like because you're like sliding and jumping around and I'm trying to split the screen, it's not really working out the way I wanted to. So I'm not actually 100% sure.
Okay, so if I'm right here, I have a net requirement here. I have a lead time of 1. I'm just going to be right here. And that will do me for D. Okay, then I'm going to go to this C here, which synchronizes with B. So I'm going to start there. And because, so Gilbert, what number goes where I am right now? If I'm doing C and this C right here, what number goes where I am right there?
Where are you starting out from? You're going from D to E, or you going
So
from
I'm
C to
right.
E?
If you look on my screen, I'm dealing with this C, this middle C that's on level 2. And that would be this cell right there. Dealing with C. So I'm going to start right
So
here.
if the lead time for D is 1, then wouldn't it go to 7? Spot 7 underneath.
Well, so I need product available within the same week of the parent.
Okay.
Okay, so I need C available within that week. So I'm going to put 100 here because I need 2 C's for every B.
Oh, okay.
Now, where do I put this 100? This is kind of what you were saying before.
Yeah, then you put that 107.
Actually, the lead time is 3, so I'd go 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Okay.
All right. And, for everyone, this is probably easier just once you do it. I found it was for me. Let's go to this C here. And that C synchronizes off of A. So it'd be here. Actually, it'd be there. So Tim, what do I do with this? Do you think? I already have a number there. I'm dealing with this C here that's going towards that requirement.
I'm not sure. Maybe offset it either to the left or right one.
Okay, I think you're on the right track. Ellie, what do you think I do here?
I don't know. I just put a little slash.
Like something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think both Tim and Ellie are on to the right thing. I could do, as long as I know what it means. Okay, so I could put 200/50 as long as I know that it's not 200 divided by 50. Okay. Or I could just put 250 because the bottom line is I need 250 that week. 50 are going to go towards this requirement. 200 are going to go towards this other requirement. Okay, this side. So just to keep it clear, let's do this. Let's go with the Ellie method and the Tim method. Okay, now 50 of those we drop down, and again, a lead time of 3. So 1, 2, 3 works out. Okay, everybody see that? So that's for that C here on level 2, this end C. All right. So down to level 3, we're going to go to E and synchronize it with this Charlie 2, which would be this C right here. And that puts us down here. So we could do the same thing. We add that 50 in there to match this. We change this to that and change this to that. We could do that. And then we want to go down to Fox. And I think we have the same thing going on. Okay, so that takes us through our first Fox. Let's go to these folks over here, Echo and Fox. We're going to synchronize off of this first Charlie. These should all be in blue. Well, actually, they're some kind of color of yellow and blue mixed together. So I've got that part done. I need to go back to this Charlie. Way out here. Okay. Again, slow is fast on this. And if you're going, how am I going to do this on an exam? Don't worry. I'm not going to have you do this under conventional exam conditions. I'm probably going to give you something like this as a take home. So I give you a little bit longer to do it and prior to the exam. So maybe the week prior. So you could do it, get it out of the way, be done with it, and then move on to the exam itself. All right. So I need to synchronize off of that 100. I'm doing this last bit here on level 3. So I'm going to go down to Echo 1. It's a 1-for-1. My lead time for Echo is 1. And for Fox, I have the same pattern. So I'm just going to cheat. Copy that. And I'm done. So a couple points. One is, it's fine when we have one item. We can kind of follow it all the way through. And things get kind of sticky when we have overlapping items. And actually, again, really like this way of writing it, because if you put 250 there, you'd probably confuse yourself more than anything else, which is not what you want to do, not just for the class, but real life. So breaking it out like that, I think, is good. Makes a lot of sense. And then another thing, just anywhere in here, when we talk about net requirements. So let's say that this right here, that we had 80 on hand. Then our net would no longer be 100. It would be 20. And if that's 20, this is 20, and then any other third and fourth order effects beyond that. Okay. And that's the point that we're about to explore is how do you work ordering into this? Okay. So I'm just going to reset my spreadsheet so I can save it for you all and post it later. And meantime, before we move on, any questions, big or small, about what we just did?
So for if you already have like 50 in your balance or whatever, so you only needed to produce 50, should we change the net requirement to production requirement? Because net requirement is the same thing as gross requirement. Like in terms of like wordage,
Yeah, so I don't
just to help better understand it.
I guess you could. I mean, right now these are the same because we're not pulling from inventory. So I see your
Yeah.
point, you
But like
know.
once we do have problems that we already have inventory, if you have it as net requirement still, it's just going to be also 100 rather than like the difference.
Well, like here, for example, where I just was, or here, either one. Let's say that I have 80 in inventory. So that means that I need to produce 20.
Yeah.
And I guess that's your point where why don't I call this a production requirement kind of thing? You know, I don't have a real straight answer to that. Other than that's probably kind of the standard is they call it net requirement. I think you know, you could call that production requirement as long as you know what you're doing and are savvy enough to understand that it might not always be a production requirement. And I'm trying to think of examples of when that might be. You might have stuff in inventory. I don't know. You might have do production yourself. You might have other people do production. There's probably a need somewhere to keep it a little more generic than specific. But I think in the case of this class, if it helps you to call it production requirements so you can keep it straight, I'm all for that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Let's continue to think about that as we run with the other things that we're going to cover today. And so the other thing we're going to cover today, these two are on your canvas. And so this gets into what do we order when we need to order? And what are the pros and cons of following a certain model for ordering inventory under ERP? So a couple things here. Number one, now I'm just really looking at one component item. Okay, so imagine that we had that big spreadsheet we were just in, and we're taking one of those rows and just looking at it kind of under a microscope. The frustrating thing here, that this is a little tedious. But again, it's like riding a bike, playing the drums, other things. Once you get the hang of it, or even doing seasonality for that matter, once you get the hang of it, you can kind of do it without thinking. And hopefully I will show you a way to do that without having to overcomplicate it, because it could be. The strategic thing, and I'm just going to put it down here, is you've got to work on these left to right. As opposed to what we just did, where we did it right to left. So that, for me, was kind of frustrating first to figure out. I was, used to working from this end that way and learning this material. And then I realized that for this is a lot easier if we work left to right. Okay, let's talk about what lot for lot means. What lot for lot means is when we need new components, then we are going to order just what we need. And I can't think of a better way to phrase that. We're not going to order more. We're not going to order less. We're going to order just what we need. Okay. So we want to do this left to right and mostly top to bottom. So here's how we're going to do this. We start with the gross requirement. Gross requirement is given to us. All right. And these are all separate numbers. This means that in this week, we've got to deliver 35 of these for the next step. Okay. The next, the item that this is dependent on. Okay. So don't see these as all one number that we minused and then added. These are all their separate islands, so to speak. So let's say that starting out, and I'll give you something like this where you've got a few numbers filled in, and the point is you've got to figure out the rest, or we've got to figure out the rest. So we start out with 35. Let's say we have 35 on hand. So here we're going to fill that entire requirement out of inventory. We don't have anything coming in because we just, for this example, we don't. But in this bottom, we're going to look ahead to the next week in terms of what our requirement is. All right. So under this model, we're going to order what's required for the next week. And whenever we have a release, we're going to have a receipt that's going to go right here. Okay, so every time you put a number there, that same number should go right there, all the way down the line, and you're going to see this. All right, so to get that 30, we look up here. And let me back up a step. And this is where it gets confusing. When we go down here and we get the 0, we're going to put a 0 here. Okay, so we have a gross requirement of 35. We have 35 on hand. We don't have anything we need to produce, but going into next week, we're going to have 0 on hand. When we figure out what this orange number should be, we want to look at next week's requirement and put an order that meets next week's requirement. And that's going to go right there. Now, I will tell you right off the bat that our balance the entire time is going to be 0, our available balance, because we're going to order exactly what we need. All right. So when we go down here, we'll go into this time period. Our gross requirement is 30. We don't have any on hand. Our net requirements are 30. And this is where this gets kind of confusing. We had 30 come in. All right. So it very much is kind of a just-in-time kind of thing. All right. At the same time, we're not going to have any next week because we're not going to have anything left over between these two 30s. So as we look to next week, we need to order 40. All right. So then we go into we automatically put that 40 there. We always want to get in that habit. We go into next week. Our requirement is 40. We don't have anything on hand. So our net requirement is 40, but we're going to meet that 40 out of the 40 that came in. Once we do that, we won't have anything left over, so that will be 0. We look ahead to next week, we see a big 0. That's kind of a party week. We're not going to produce anything, so we're not going to order anything. We don't have a requirement for anything. Okay, we move into the next week. Our net requirements are 0 because we don't have anything due. We're not going to have anything left over either. And because we ordered 0 down here, we're going to put 0 right there. We look ahead to next week. We see that 10. We're going to order that 10. We automatically put it there. We go into the week. We have a requirement of 10. We don't have anything on hand, but our 10 just came in. We're going to meet that. We still have a net requirement of 10, but we're going to meet that with that. Once we do that, we're not going to have anything left over. That's okay. Once again, we look to next week. So, Ethan Green, what should go in the box that I'm in on right now?
40.
Awesome. And where else do I want to put that 40?
Net requirement for 6.
Yeah.
Planned
So
on-
as it turns out, I always want to put it where I am right now, but you are correct. I'm also going to want to put it here. Okay. Because Ethan sees the pattern of what's going on. That's great. But I definitely want to put it where my box is right now and just get in that habit. And we'll see that on the next model as well. I look ahead to week 7, Ethan Locker. What am I going to put down here in this cell where I am right now?
It should be 30.
Outstanding. And I'm going to go ahead and put that 30 right there. Okay. So we can see the rest. All right. That 30, oops, excuse me, is going to go there. I'm just going to shortcut to the end. That would be 0. This would be 30. This would be 55. This would be 0. This would be 30. This would be 55. This would be 0. That would be 30. And that would be 55. And I don't know what's here because I don't know what the 11th week holds in store. Okay, so what? Well, a couple things. We ordered just what we needed, and because the lead time worked out, it comes just in time for it to meet the requirement. Okay. Yeah, if somebody could go ahead and mute their mic, I can hear you shuffling around. Here's the next so what? What is our inventory cost? And you remember inventory cost is composed of 2 things, ordering cost and holding cost. So if we want to cost out this model, all right, let's suppose that our given costs are 100 is that, remember S, our setup / ordering cost. So every time we order, we spend $100. So I'm going to assume that we're going to order something out here. Well, we don't know. We'll just work with what we have because we don't know what the next week is. So Emily, how many times do we order?
Hold on, let me pull it back up. 10 times?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, 7.
Yep. Just like you said, 7 times. And so to get that ordering cost, we're going to take every time we order times that, 700. Myra, what is our holding cost? If it's $1 per item that we held in inventory, What was our holding cost?
I mean, if it's per item, it would be different for each one. Or would it just be the 7 again?
So this 7 is the amount of times we ordered.
Yeah.
So here we ordered one time, here we ordered. The holding cost refers to the amount of units that we're holding.
Mm-hmm.
So we only are holding 35 items in inventory.
Yeah.
Because we have 0 for the rest of the time.
Okay.
So this would be 35. And then our total ordering costs would be $735. So what? Well, it doesn't really mean much until we compare this number to another method of inventory. Okay? Which is what we're going to do. So we'll remember that number 739. Again, lot for lot, we ordered just what we need. Okay? And it's not necessarily that entire amount for the next week, but if we don't have anything on hand, then it would be. We're essentially producing from one week to the next. So let's take a look at another method, which would be EOQ. Now, EOQ and MRP don't work well together, just right off the top. And remember, what kind of prompts us to EOQ is constant demand. So with MRP, demand is not necessarily constant. I mean, if we look at this here, same gross requirements, so we're going to compare apples to apples. Demand is not constant. We're doing 35 one week, we're doing 30 the next, we're doing 40 another, we're doing 0. So right off the bat, SpiderSense kind of tells us this might not be the best method of doing inventory replenishment. But we're going to roll with it. So every time we order, we're going to order 73. Anytime we need to order anything, we're going to order 73. Okay, so let's look at this top to bottom. We start out with a gross requirement of 35. We have 35 on hand. That's going to meet everything. We have net requirement of 0, but the problem is if we roll into next week, we'll have nothing on hand. Okay, why is that a problem? Well, as we look to next week, the requirement is 30. And here's the difference. Instead of just ordering 30, we're going to order that 73. Okay, and we always put that number right there. So we come into this week, we have a requirement of 30, we have nothing on hand. We have a net requirement of 30. Let me make sure my numbers are right. Okay, so here's the tricky part. We're going to meet that requirement with the 73 that just came in, and that will leave 43 left over going into next week. All right, that's the tricky part for me, figuring out how to do this. As I look to next week, because I'll have 43 on hand and my production or my requirement is 40, I don't need to order anything. Okay, so this will be 0. Even though that's 40, I'm going to be able to cover it with that 43. So because I have 0 here, I put 0 there. All right. My requirement is 40. My balance on hand is 43. So Kylie, what will this number be where my green box is right now?
That would be 0.
You are correct. That would be 0 because I can cover everything with that 43 and I'll have 3 left over. Okay, super. I go down here. What do I need for next week? Well, I'm not producing anything. And even if I was, as long as it was 3 or lower, I could cover it with that. So this will be 0. Okay, roll into the next week. I have 3 on hand. So I don't have a net requirement. And these 3 will be left over for the following week. I don't have anything coming in. I'm not going to, but I look ahead. I have 10. I'm only going to be able to have 3 on hand. So, Allie, what do I put down here where my cursor is?
Is that 0?
Do I need to order something or not? What do you think?
You do.
Okay. So if I do, how much do I order?
Well, you need 10, right?
I definitely need, I need 7 because 3 of them are going to be covered.
Okay.
But the model that I'm under, every time I order 73.
So it's 73.
It is. It's kind of like, this is kind of how I can think of an army analogy, but it wouldn't. If every time I went to Rudders, I had to spend $73 or I had to break a $73 bill kind of thing. Even then, that's not a very good analogy because I'm not going to Rudders these days anyway. All right. Back on track. So because I put 73 there, I put 73 here. Okay. So I go into the week. I have a gross requirement of 10. I have an on hand of 3. So I have a net leftover of 7. Okay. So of that remaining 7, I can cover it with this 73. And Gary, so what is my available balance in the next week?
I'm thinking you're going to do 73 minus 7. So you're going to have whatever that number is. Was it 66?
Yep. Good.
Cool.
Okay. So I get down here and I say, well, do I need something going into next week? I have a requirement of 40, but I'm going to have 66 on hand. So I don't need to order anything because I put a 0 there. I put a 0 here. Roll into next week. I have a net of 0 because that whole 66 is going to cover the requirement. And I don't like that number there. Yeah, that's correct. 26 is going to roll over into that next week. I look ahead, production requirement is 30. I'm going to have 26 on hand. So, JT, what do I do down here in this box?
You have to place a new order, so it'd be 73.
Good job. So 73 there, and if 73 there goes here, 73 goes here. All right, 30 on hand, or excuse me, 30 gross requirement, 26 on hand. That means I have a net of 4. I'm going to be able to cover that 4 with the 73. I'm going to have some stuff left over. So, Brandon, what do I do with that number that I have left over? Where does it go?
You put it in the 8th column next to the 26.
Okay. And that will be 69. All right, cool. Go down here. I look ahead to next week. I don't have a production requirement. Even if I did, I'd 69. So I get a big fat stack of inventory. Come down here. I have a net of 0. Didn't have anything coming in. That's going to be 0 as well. Looking ahead, I have 30, but I can cover it. So I don't need to order anything there. I have 69 on hand. My net is 0 because I can cover that whole thing. AJ, what am I going to do with the leftover? I have 69 on hand. I have a requirement for 30. So I have 39 left over. Where's that 39 go?
That goes in the next, right there, next to 69.
Okay. Super. All right. Looking ahead to next week. I've got 55 requirement. I can cover part of it, but not all of it. So that prompts me to order the Magic 73 because that goes there. This goes here. My net is 0. Actually, it's not 0. It's 55 minus 39, which is 16. And we'll call it a day there. Okay, who cares? Well, let's take a look at this. Trevor, how many times did we order during this cycle?
3 times.
1,
4, sorry.
2, yep, 3, 4. No problem. So if ordering cost is still 100 every time we ordered, then ordering cost is 100 times 4. Now, here's the tricky part. Remember, holding cost is $1 for every unit kept in inventory. All right. So I want to take the sum of these and tack on that 35. Okay. So I'm just going to do that. Just make sure you know where this number's coming from. I'm going to grab that 43 and I'm going to drag it out here to capture all that inventory that I had on hand. Okay, 1 times 353 is 353. And my total inventory cost for this component, remember, this is one component potentially of many, is 753. Compare that number to not that number. Where was our other one? 735. Okay. See what I did there? Or what we did? So before we did lot for lot, 735. Here we did EOQ. It seems like it's not much. Well, 17 or whatever that difference is. And it may not always be that EOQ is more. But you can see why it is more is because those holding costs were much more. 353 in holding costs versus 35 down here. This is just about a just-in-time model. And that's why we do just-in-time inventory, is to cut down those holding costs. Of course, our ordering costs go up. Here we didn't have to order as much. So the short answer is it kind of all depends. But I think in general, EOQ does not really work so well with MRP models. And that's because of the simple fact that under MRP, if we're ordering 35 every week, then that would make a little more sense to have an EOQ with an ROP and all those things that we know and love. But if demand is kind of going like this, this isn't wild variation, but there's a fair amount of variation here. This doesn't really make as much sense. These aren't the only methods of inventory replenishment, but we are going to stick with these two in terms of what we're going to focus on learning. Are there any questions on anything we just did here with these or anything else we did today? Any questions at all? Okay, Well, what I'll do is I will post these solutions for you on Canvas. Probably not right away, but later on, I'll give you a chance to work them on your own. But you'll have there to, they'll be there to check yourself. You also have this video to check yourself if you get stuck. What I owe you within the next 24 hours is your quote homework on this. Again, that won't be due until not this coming Sunday, but next Sunday. And that'll give you time, again, this is not the only show you got in town, but it'll give you time to get into it. And I would encourage you to get into it sooner than later, because the more time that passes from when you see this to when you do it is not necessarily a good thing. But also doing it earlier than later will give you chances to, I won't say mess it up, but make mistakes and, work with your fellow warriors on me on, okay, I thought I was getting this when you did it, but now I'm not getting it, kind of thing. And then we can work through those kind of issues. As always, I will stick around until you all clear the call. If there's anyone who wants to hang out and ask questions, alibis, things like that, I will wait until you're all gone, and then I'll post this video once we're clear. If I don't talk to you, look forward to your projects. And as always, have a great weekend. Take care.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Hey, Professor, one quick question. For Way of the Warrior assignment, if we work together with someone on it, like a partner, do we both turn in a copy on Canvas, or do you just want one copy from the group?
One copy is fine. Just make sure it's on there of who was working on it.
All right, 10-4, thank you.
Okay. Gilbert, we good?